Hi everyone, I am Babette Jackson, or Rose, or Rosalie, and today my talk is going to be about the fact that I've been autistic my entire life, but I just found out 2 years ago thanks to cybersecurity. So what does that mean? What does autism mean? And what do I have? So in simple terms, I have level 1 autism, also known back before a long time ago as Asperger's, but we don't necessarily use that phrase anymore. So to translate it, level 1 autism just means that my autism is a bit more manageable for other people, but I still have it and I still struggle. So when I was younger, I always knew that things were a little bit different for me. And I felt like I was a little bit strange. I always had like this alien complex that I'm pretty sure every neurodivergent or every autistic person has had. I used to tell people that was an alien who was dropped off on the planet Earth to experiment and to access other humans. And I'm just waiting for my real parents to come pick me up. But in the meantime, I think they forgot about me and I'm like drowning, trying to fit in and pretend that I'm human. And interestingly enough, I actually had a few people believe that story and we had conversations. So that just says a lot. Um, but in the end, I kind of just thought that that's what every teenager went through. You know, the world is hard. I hate everyone and I can't wait to be an adult. But as I get older, it wasn't just my parents who didn't understand, word to Will Smith. It literally felt like everybody didn't understand. And I, in fact, didn't understand everybody else. I just didn't understand how that there's 8.1 billion people on this planet, but I felt like a snowflake in a volcano, a dolphin in the Sahara Desert, or a polar bear in the Sahara Desert. It just didn't make any sense to me. I just felt so different from everybody. So what does this mean? Next, that meant personality tests. I needed to understand why I was the way I was. I needed to understand what made me who I was, why I was making the decisions that I was making, and what was the reason for why I felt so different than everybody. So, first up was personality tests, Myers-Briggs. And if you know anything about Myers-Briggs personality tests, they're a whole segment of their own thing. So, that's what I did. I found out that I was an INTP female, and looking at the calculations, an INTP female only makes up for about 2% of the entire quote unquote world population. So I was like, bet, that's why I felt so weird. And it kind of empowered me because if you know anything about quote unquote INTPs, it's Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was known as the genius INTP. So I was like, cool, that's the reason why I feel so different. That's the reason why I feel so weird. And I'm the minority population. So of course, nobody's going to be similar to me. So then I basically made it my whole entire life. I started going on YouTube and posting videos about how I'm an INTP female, and this is what it looks like inside of my head. And I just started expressing myself. And at the time, you can see one video was 10 years ago when I first started college. Another one was an update about 8 years ago. Um, so I can give to the people, and the people like they were eating it up. People are actually really interested about me being an INTP female. So boom, I figured out that that's not enough. I understood that yes, I like science, yes, I like math, but in high school, I was failing every single science class and every single math class that I had. So I feel like I couldn't be too much of the whole INTP female logician that it was talking about. I felt like I had a personality a little bit more. I felt like I can communicate. So I felt like it was something a little bit off. So I needed more data, which meant more personality tests. So through my personality test, I found out that I'm in, of course, INTP female, which was less than 2% of the population. I then found out that I was a 5W6 female, the problem solver in Enneagram, which was 1.1% of the population. Again, the minority. Then I was like, okay, cool. What else you got for me? Aries sun, Aries moon, Sag rising. Did research, what does that mean? That's another rare combination of people on this planet who have all those things together. The minority. I was like, that's not enough. I need more information. So I was like, cool, human design. I'm a 1-3 1-3 projector in human design. And those people make up 1.6% of the planet. And that's not just taking out the female population. So I was like, okay, what does this mean? Upon my research, I was like, there's connections here, and I'm seeing different summary points. So the number one is the minority report. Everything that I researched about my personality and everything that I was going through, I was always the minority in things, the 1%, the 2%, the 3%, the 4%. And in some ways, I was like, okay, I guess that explains a lot, but I don't know, that's still a little weird. And then if you look at all the characteristics and traits of all those different personality tests that I was doing, they all pointed to the same characteristics and traits as the autistic person: hyperfocus, attention to detail, pattern spotting, creativity, being logical, being analytical, and the list goes on. So I was like, interesting. But still, I don't know. I don't think I want to catch that bait. And for me, in my community, I never thought about autism because, as you can see here, a lot of the shows that were out, Good Doctor, Atypical, The Big Bang Theory, and even before those shows that came out, it wasn't no representation of me for autistic women, for Black autistic women at all. So I'm like, yeah, there's no way. And then at the time, too, I feel like having autism, for what the definition of people believed it was based on social stigmas or based on TV shows, was not me. And it was a stigma. So I didn't even want to associate myself with that at the time. So I was like, yeah, the vet and autism are antonyms, not synonyms. So boom, we get to college. And boy, oh boy, college was a very stressful point of my life. But I wanted to try. I wanted to build the friendships, build the relationships. And when you go into college, it's like the pre-step before you become an actual adult inside of life. So I wanted to do it. And yeah, when I say maintaining friendships was a giant puzzle piece for me, it was a big question mark. It was a bolded, italicized, underlined size 152 font red question mark. And maintaining friendships was a puzzle piece. So what did I do? I did what I knew how to do best: studied. I read every single book that you can think of. And yes, I read all these books on the screen, plus more, to understand humans and their behavior and the psychology on how to make friends, how to be friends, and just understanding everything about relationships, whether it's platonic, romantic, and everything in between. But boy, oh boy, listen. And the more I studied, the more disappointment that I had, because I learned that nobody followed this rule book of human psychology. We have all these things about human psychology and human behavior, but when I called it out for what it actually was, because when you do this, the book said that this meant this. But when I say that you're doing this because this is the way that the book says it, then that's not right. I'm not the one that's socially correct and I'm incorrect. But it just confused me. But I'm like, but this is the true thing. The book told me that it's right. You're not following the rule book and you're acting unauthentic. And yeah, it just took me for a run for my money trying to understand the social dynamics outside of high school, because in high school, it was a little bit different. You had your own schedules, you had your set of friends, and college was just completely different for me. So then eventually I was like, okay, so maybe it's not them. I feel like maybe they're acting normal and I'm the weird one. So again, what did I do? I studied. I read every single book that you can think of on personal development. And again, yes, every single book that you see on the screen, I literally read, plus more. So when I had started reading, I kind of just started focusing on myself and developing myself because I really wanted to get this right. I really wanted to have the lasting relationships. I really wanted to have the friendships that I had seen, of course, all over social media and in the different friend groups that I seen inside of inside of my social groups. But it came to a point that I just said, forget it. It came to a point that my pattern recognition and my I guess, dearness for justice and fairness started ripping apart relationships no matter what I did. So then I just turned into Daria for the people that I necessarily didn't care about. And then also I turned into a people pleaser for the people that I did actually care about. So now we're into my first year of college. My first year of college led me with my first year of college with all the people I interacted with led me to believe that I don't ever, ever, and refuse to have a job directly dealing with humans because of everything that I had went through. And when I got into college, I majored in computer science because it was popular and my counselor said that I would excel in it. And the 79 personality test said, yes, you better get into STEM. So I said, all right, bet. But no, it wasn't for me. I had did that. And then when I had went to college, my first year, I was already set back a year and a half because remember I said the whole thing about me not being good at science and math. Well, I had to take a half a year of remedial math, and that put me way back. So I had went to my counselor and was like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work for me. Do you have anything else for me? Because I still have this burning pit for dealing with humans in the deep part of my soul. But I still feel like I have a personality and I still kind of like people, just not all the time. And I need some people to be around, but not a lot of people to be around. And having my forehead glued to my computer screen for hours on end is causing me to have excessive migraines while I'm coding. So I don't want to do that. So let's find something else. And also, I feel like those people in the computer science department may be autistic, and I'm not that. So let's move forward. So, boom, he was like, bet, I got the perfect thing for you between humans and technology, business administration, computer information systems with an emphasis in information security and forensics. And at the time, I had no clue what this was, but and I had no clue what cybersecurity was at the time either. But I was like, bet, I'm finna trust you. Let's get the ball rolling because I need to graduate. I'm already behind and I just want to get paid. So let's keep it pushing. Whew. And boy, oh boy, was I in for the most wonderful and most difficult surprise of my entire life. So the ball started rolling. I was beginning in the first years of my college, and it was cool because of the prereqs, and the prereqs were prereqing. But when I got to my core classes, oh yeah, it was a completely different game. I failed two classes within my CIS department. Yeah, I failed two classes, and the CIS department had multiple washout classes, which just means they purposefully make the classes hard so people will fail to wash out those people who don't quote unquote qualify. And then on top of that, we were on quarter systems and we had midterms, what felt like every 2 weeks. And I was taking between 4 to 5 classes and stacking my classes incorrectly because I was stacking a lot of science classes with math classes with coding classes. Don't do that. Word of advice. Oh, and the best part, if you failed 3 of your classes, you got kicked out of your major and you had to find something else. And then might I add that the wonderful C minus that you see on the screen is considered failing in our CAS department. So here's another thing. Remember that whole minority thing that I was talking about? It came back and it ate me up. Every core class that I had for my CIS degree, I was the minority. I was the only Black woman. I was the only Black person. I was the only female in a lot of my classes. And it came to a point where I literally prayed and I had breakdowns. And I was like, dear God, I know you give your toughest battles to your strongest soldiers, but I lied on the application and please send help. Marked an alien, not a human being. I can't do this anymore. This is way too much for me. And then after all this happened, mind you, I'm in college for this is my fourth year. And after my fourth year, my financial aid was running out, and that was my only source of income. So I needed jobs. I needed some way to get income. So I tried to work while I was in college. And again, that wasn't it. I had every type of job you can think of. I had warehouse jobs where I had to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was a cashier where I'm pretty sure I gave people the wrong amount of change because I was bad at math and I had to engage with people all the time. I worked at Big Lots. I worked at Kohl's. I worked at Nordstrom. I worked at YMCA's. I did DoorDash. I did Postmates. I worked in cafeterias making sandwiches. I did every single job underneath the sun that you can possibly think of. And every job that I had, I was either fired, I quit, or I stopped coming in. I was just completely over it because I just couldn't keep a job that I had absolutely no interest in. It was just something in me and I couldn't do it. But we get to the good part. So boom, the girl graduated. I graduated, we fast forward, I got a job walking right off the stage about like 10 minutes before I walked on stage. I got a job and I graduated as the only African American female in 2019 in the Computer Information Systems Department to graduate in Business Administration's Computer Information Systems with the emphasis in Information Security and Forensics. And when I walked off the stage, like I said, I got a job in Silicon Valley as a data loss prevention analyst. I had no clue what it was, but we was rolling with it. I made it there with the big dogs. I was doing what I wanted to do. My life was blowing up. I was getting featured everywhere on Instagram. I was having interviews with multiple different people and the whole 9 yards. The girl was a sugar honey iced tea. It was amazing for me. And my first year out of college was the best thing of my life. And as you can see, I made a GIF out of myself because once I had graduated, I just started crying because of all the things that I had went through. And it still makes me emotional because all the stuff that I had went through. So boom, once it's my first year at my job and I'm going to all these different conferences and I'm starting to get into more spaces where cybersecurity and tech folks and STEM folks are in there. And I really started to find my people. I started to find the people who looked like me. I started to find the people who dressed like me, started to find the people who talked like me, had the same interests outside of cybersecurity like me, had the same background stories, and even had some of the same traumas as me. And I was like, yo, twin, where have you been? My people, I have found you. It's you that I have been looking for. As you can see here, I used ChatGPT to convert this image or to make this image of what a typical cybersecurity conference would look like. And boom, I think it did an amazing job with the colored hair, the tattoos, and the whole 9 yards. But then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, boy, oh boy, those characteristics and traits started to come out tenfold. I was hitting the point of burnout. I had no clue that it was called burnout, but for some reason, that bubbly character, happy-go-lucky Babette was tragically starting to fade. I was starting to have pain all over my body, and feel like I was falling into depression because I didn't have any clue what was going on with me. I couldn't understand how I was succeeding so much inside of my job, but when it came to relationship building, since the pandemic and me getting a new partner that I really, really cared about and I really wanted to get it right, I couldn't apply the same success that I had inside of my job with everything else inside of my life. And then on top of that, TikTok. TikTok in my life became popular during the pandemic. And I was like, okay, bet I might as well give it a try. And oh, did that algorithm because neurodiversity and autism continued to show up on my feed. And again, at the time, I didn't really have any clue what it was, but I engaged. I started to make more, and it started to make more sense, but I was still a little bit skeptical. And then the icing on the icing on the cake came in when I got a message from one of my friends in college. And mind you, we hadn't spoke for maybe like a year and some change, and I didn't really speak to him too much. And he sent me this PDF, and the PDF was neurodiversity terms that I can use. And he was like, oh, well, maybe this will help you with your autism in the corporate America. And at first I was like, who the hell are you to tell me that I have autism? What are you talking about? I don't have autism, but go off. Thank you. But then I read the PDF and I was like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. It might just be time for me to get assessed. So boom, 17 hours of testing and the results were in. Babette Jackson, level 1 autism. And you know what that means? Research, 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 research. I read every single book that you can think of when it comes to autism, when it comes to Asperger's, when it comes to neurodiversity, when it comes to ADHD, because I also got diagnosed with that just last year. Every single book that I can think of, because I needed to know, I needed to understand, again, how it happened, who gave it to me, what does this mean, and so forth and so on. And again, yes, I read every single book on the screen because I needed to know more. So yes, when it came to everything that I was finding out and me relating everything and connecting the dots with all the personality tests that I had, I was like, okay, cool. Now I have to present my findings to the world because I feel like people have to know this. Because when I was doing my own research, none of this information was out. You've seen people who had autism on TikTok, but none of them look like me. I'm an African American female, and I may be wrong or I may be right in a lot of things that I'm saying on my TikTok, but I'm just here to give you another perspective and just give you insight into inside of my mind. So, boom, that's what I did. But again, I needed to connect the dots. Why was I thriving in my cybersecurity career, but was having such a hard time in everything else? Um, and then I started to connect the dots. I started to understand that all the traits that quote unquote made me autistic, all the characteristics that made me a little quirky, made me a little weird, me being curious, hyper focusing, independent, being ethical, having a strong sense of justice, being reliable, having fairness, good under pressure, being non biased, so forth and so on. And the list goes on. All those traits were the same traits that I had for autism were the same qualities and characteristics that they were looking for in cybersecurity. Then I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. So cybersecurity is the same thing as white on rice when it comes to, yeah, the same thing as white on rice. And cybersecurity and autism was the same thing as peanut butter to jelly. It just made sense. And I was like, oh, okay. So basically, I'm striving in my cybersecurity career because I'm autistic. That makes a lot of sense. And here's the part where I go into what I do. So what I do, I'm a senior insider threat analyst, a data loss prevention analyst. Here's other things that I can go by: a digital guardian, a digital detective, a data defender, a risk wrangler, insider risk analyst, a DLP subject matter expert. Now let's go into things that I do so I can connect the dots. So the main things that I do is develop playbooks, improve methodologies, digitally investigate people. So I guess the best way that I can explain it is, like it said, I'm a digital detective. So on my day-to-day basis, I create alerts, I analyze people, I go into people's digital work lives and try to create a story based on just the facts. Again, remember the skill of not being biased comes in, but just point out all the facts, try to create a story of what happened based on the facts. And then I also, in the background, I create documentation, I do reports, and I do a lot of research. I have a lot of continuous learning when it comes to new tools and technology, which is one of my favorite things. I always tell my manager, if there's a new tool, please let me just play with it. I'm the type of person who's going to read the entire manual and then go in and play with it. And then when they have someone to train me, be like, oh, but you didn't read the manual, so forth and so on. And as you can see here, I'm blue team. So that means I'm defensive security. And when it comes to cybersecurity, cybersecurity is a very, very wide range of different things that you can do. I'm on the investigative side, and I really love that. But you may be the person who loves to have their forehead glued to the computer and coding. There's the people who like to just play with people, and when it comes to like hacking, and that would be the penetrative testing and everything. So it's many places that you can go in for cybersecurity and find your way. You just have to figure out what do you like to do. And like all the people before me talked about, you have to figure out your strengths. You just got to play a little bit and you have to research. So while I was conducting my research online, it's like, why should you hire us neurodivergent folks? Yes, we have our cons and yes, we have our pros, but at the end of the day, we have a lot of things that will help your company grow. We have a lot of things that you're probably looking for, such as here, the good memory for factual information, the different ways of thinking because we're neurodiverse. We essentially will become specialists in certain knowledge and skills because of our ability to hyper focus on different things. We have pattern matching, and we have meticulous attention to detail. If you give me logs, if you give me data, I promise you I will make something out of it, and it's my absolute favorite thing to do. Now, some of us have strong numerical skills. I don't have that. I don't have strong numerical skills at all. I didn't get that type of autism. And as you can see here and read all these different things, there's different people vouching as for why you should continue to hire neurodivergent people. And I've been watching Grey's Anatomy, and one of my favorite phrases is pick me, choose me, love me. And that's how I feel when it comes to neurodivergent folks and hiring us. Now, here's a word. I know everybody before me has gone over this, so I'm not going to go through a lot of the things. But when it comes to hiring managers, it's a little things that we need to do a little bit different. So when I got my current job that I'm at now, their hiring practice was a little different, but it actually worked for me. So the first round of interviews wasn't like a face-to-face. It was where we had to record a video. And when we recorded the video, I think we had like 2 to 3 tries to answer the question before we recorded the video. And for me, that was amazing because I know I have ability to possibly trip up on words, and depending upon on the day it is, I can have low energy or focus on trying to figure out where do I look, who do I look at, making eye contact. It takes a while for me to process. So that was amazing. And then on top of that, it's the language that you use inside of the job descriptions. I know it can be very confusing reading like a tech job description because it has a whole bunch of words on it. But again, you have to curate the job description for the type of people that you want. And if you want more neurodivergent people at your company, you're going to have to switch things up a little bit more. Another thing is train the interviewers on neurodiversity when it comes to things like processing, because I know, like I said, it takes me a while to process certain answer or just even having questions beforehand so I know what's going on. And I know another person talked about considering trial work period where you can like go in and you can test it out, or even just visiting the site so you can understand like what's going on. So you won't have this anxiety while you're trying to interview. And so you know that the role is fit for you. And now here, this one is for managers. When it comes to managing a person who's neurodiverse, yes, you're going to have to work with us a little bit more. And also, it's on us as a person being neurodiverse and a person with autism. We have to advocate for ourselves. So, one of the good reasons that I love working in cybersecurity is because of the flexible work hours. I know some days I will start early in the morning. Some days I won't start working until like 12, but I'll go on until like the end of the day. And I know for me, I may not work entirely through this whole entire 8 hours, but when I produce, I produce. And when you give me a task at hand, I will hyper focus and I cannot, for the life of me, put anything down. Another thing that I like to do or that I ask for is direct communication in multiple forms of communication. So that means communications within emails and then having agendas beforehand and then one-on-ones. And one thing that I did for my company, I don't know if I did it or if it was other people in the company who also advocated for it, is the idea of captions, because it takes a while for me to process, especially when people are talking. And I have a hard time with virtual things when multiple people are talking. So I wrote an email to our HR department and was like, I see that you guys don't have captions enabled, and I feel like there may be a lot of people who actually need those captions due to the processing and hearing different things. So let's change that. And long and behold, about 2 months later, they turned those captions on, and I was like, bet, that's amazing. Um, so yeah, you can read the rest of this. And I know if you've been watching the talks before, they've also touched on a lot of the things for managers. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's possible. And I say that when it comes to being in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world. It does take skill, it does take training, it does take time. But if it's something, if it plays on the skills that you already have, then you're going to be more interested in it. But the thing that you have to do is you have to figure out what are you actually interested in, and then go from there. And then on the part of the managers, on the part of the um, on the part of the managers, and the part of the hiring managers, on part of the company, we're just all gonna have to work together. It's teamwork. We can do it, and just don't give up. It's possible. I promise you, it's possible. And boom, that's me. So you can read this section right here, that this little thing that I have created on my social media following. So like I said, when I started doing TikTok, I just started making videos about opening up about my mind and who I am and my different theories, because I always have a theory about something. And I say about 70% of the time I am right because of my pattern recognition and my deep research. But I gained a pretty hefty following of 41.4K followers. And like I said, I just want to help people understand that having autism is not as much as a burden that people believe it is to be. And also, I just want people to see a face like me, an African American female who has autism, so they won't be alone like I guess I was. And then on top of that, I also have my technically 2_Rose page, where I go on and I talk about all my cybersecurity awareness videos. And as you can see right here, I asked ChatGPT who Rosalie Babette was based on my technically Rose and my at the Autistic Giraffe on TikTok page was, and they came out with a pretty good summary of what it was. So it says Rosalie Babette, known as technically under 2_Rose on Instagram, and at the Autistic Giraffe on TikTok, is a multifaceted content creator specializing in cybersecurity awareness and autism advocacy. On both platforms, she creates engaging, humorous, and relatable videos to educate her audience about various cybersecurity topics, making complex concepts accessible and easy to understand. As a level 1 autistic woman, Rosalie also uses her platform to share personal experiences and insights, promoting awareness and acceptance of autism. She highlights the unique advantages of being autistic, particularly within the cybersecurity field, and provides valuable resources and book recommendations for autistic adults. And yeah, you can read the rest. But this is just me asking ChatGPT who I am. I didn't plug any of this in, so I would like to give myself clout and a round of applause for creating a whole profile that ChatGPT can understand who I am. And yeah, that's just me. And the one thing that I want to leave with everybody is I'm not puzzling once you take the time to know me. And that's anybody on the autistic spectrum and any neurodivergent person. We're just, don't even like to say that we're different. We think differently because I believe everybody is one. And just because you think differently, just because you understand things differently, it doesn't make you any different. We're just humans. We all come in different forms and formats, and we all have our pros and cons about us. But yes, this is me. Thank you for listening. And I'll leave you with my favorite quote: never stop learning because life never stops teaching. Thank you.